It's my privilege to serve as your moderator for this afternoon's panel. As we gather in this forum with our panelists today, I'd like you to reflect on a very critical aspect of environmental protection, the power and importance of civic engagement. The need for collective action has never been more urgent in the face of growing impacts from climate change and habitat destruction. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the scale of these issues. I mean, has anyone ever sat on a presentation about sea level rise? Yet there does exist an avenue for change right at our doorsteps: involvement in our local governance and community initiatives. Our municipalities are the front lines of environmental advocacy, where decisions made can have tangible, lasting effects in our communities. Our panel today brings together a diverse group of women with unique roles and experiences, from serving on planning commissions and nonprofit boards to grassroots organizing. Their journeys highlight the ways that we can engage and work together to affect real positive change in our communities. As we listen to their insights and lessons learned, I encourage you to think about your own place in this movement. What role can you play? How can your passions and skills contribute to bettering the environmental issues in your own communities? And remember that every action counts, for it's the collective efforts of individuals like us that drives progress. Civic engagement is a powerful tool. Boards, committees, and councils focused on environmental oversight are actively seeking passionate individuals, people just like you and these women sitting on our panel today, ready to step up and contribute their voices, their expertise, and their time. So, without further ado, let's meet our esteemed panelists. We are going to go down our line here. We have first here Edie Sheehan-Hammond. Next is Susan Meyerhoff, followed by Helen Eckel-Wiener and Crystal Gilchrist at the end here. So they're each going to take a moment to give you an introduction, and we'll kick things off with you, Edie.
Good afternoon. Just to start with, how many of you are involved in your local community, local townships? I mean, really, both. So most people here are involved. A quote just came to my mind of a former Speaker of the House, not the one we have now, but this is a while ago. His name was Tip O'Neill. And he said, all politics is local. And by saying all politics is local, it means that if there is going to be any change, it will happen with your local township. North Coventry. Did anybody come in on 422? Because if you came in on 422, you're actually going through North Coventry. And that's a very urban side of North Coventry, anyway, when you come off of 422. And then you go right into Pottstown, which our side of the river was considered South Pottstown. So we have an urban community in the township. The population is 8,441 people. We're located in Chester County, not Montgomery County where we are now, so it's a different county. And in 2010, considered 10 years, of the population is 7,866. So what does that mean? It grew by 2.1%. Chester County is one of the fastest. There are 3 counties that are fast growing, and Chester County is one of the 3. There were some really poor-minded people that started back in about 22 years ago to create what we have as our open space program. The board, talking about civic engagement, the board's 7 members, we're glad to have 7 members. There is an established open space review board, and I serve as the chair of that review board. 3 members are of the public at large. 1 representative member of all the other planning groups and all the other groups involved. So we have someone from Park and Rec, we have somebody from the Historical Commission, we have, I just got that, sorry. But anyway, so we have someone from the Board of Supervisors. We have actually 2 members of the Board of Supervisors who come to almost every meeting. We have someone also from planning. Critical to our success has been an affiliation with a land trust. Originally with, and we still work with them for the Trust for Public Land, and also now Friendship Pickering Creeks Conservation Trust. So Natural Lands and Friendship Pick have been the backbone of our success in North Country. I also need to mention a gentleman who I believe is watching on Zoom, Christopher Washburn. If I would be standing here if it wasn't for Chris Washburn, and I would be able to tell you all the successes that we've had if it wasn't for Chris. So we began in 2002 with a referendum. 77% of voters approved of the referendum. What does that mean? 1.25% paid by each resident on earned income. A quarter of that 1.25 is dedicated to the preservation and maintenance of open space in the township and cannot be used for other purposes. So this is how we started in 2003. I wasn't living in the township at the time, but Chris Washburn and some other really foresighted people were and decided that they really needed to save the open space because it defines the character and the quality of life that we have in North Country. Also, we should note that in 2019, our comprehensive plan indicated that our community ranked open space preservation as their highest priority. We make a concerted effort to continue to engage our citizens at festivals, with newsletters, and direct mail. So we open the doors for every meeting. Obviously, we can't talk about individual properties with the general public, but in every meeting is open. Okay, so before open space, 471 acres were preserved. Today, okay, so 471. Today, we have 1,489 acres preserved, or 24% of available land. So you can see the difference between 2003 and 2024. I'm also going to, I want to go to some of our parks. 821 acres of forests and trails, 53 acres of active recreation parkland, 599 acres of perpetual agricultural easement on farms. These totals include 94 acres dedicated by developers to open space as required by the township ordinances. To accomplish this, the board negotiated 57 separate transactions for 89 separate tax parcels and completed 13 subdivisions to achieve solutions that benefit the landowner as well as the township. Okay, you saw 2,000 today. All of the gray area we consider future opportunities. We do have a strategic plan, so not everything there, but most of it is possible. Our largest park is Coventry Woods Park. This park includes many former woodlots that were owned previously by the Hopewell Company, which owned and operated the Hopewell Farm Furnace. In addition to Coventry Wood event, I went also, Kenilworth Park is an urban park. Coventry Woods is definitely back in the woods, which is all of this. Coventry Woods is part of the Hopewell Big Woods, which is one of the largest forests between Washington, D.C. and New York City. So, why Kenilworth Park? What does the Open Space Review Board have to do with that? Well, we've expanded it, and we have also created a connection, it's not quite finished, between Kenilworth Park and the Schuylkill River Trail. The cumulative land reserved in our township, including the land reserved in core open space, is 1,955 acres, as I said, 24% of all township, all the township available land. I could go into more details. We did have to borrow some money, $3 million, but we paid it back. And today the township receives approximately $600,000 in earned income tax for open space. So I'm passionate about this. And I'm so pleased to let you all know that for the first couple of years that I did this, we didn't seem to be purchasing any land. This past year, we've been able to purchase 11 acres of land. We're in negotiation for something like 30 acres for an easement, and then also we have another easement of 5 acres. Oh, 5 acres. Why is that important? Well, it happens to be that on the route, all the salamanders go to cross Coventry Trail. So I'm excited because we're saving salamanders. I hope you all go to, at least go to a meeting. Go to your open space review board meeting, if you have one. And if you don't have an open space review board, get one.
All right, thank you so much for that. Open door working. Next up, I hear from Susan Myra.
Hi everybody, I'm going to take this off. Alright, this is easier for me. Hi, my name is Susan Myra. I serve as Vice Chair of the Abington Township Environmental Advisory Council. I am now currently in my, middle of my 5th term as a volunteer for the EAC. It means by the end of 2025, it'll be 15 years for me on this on our board. Tell you a little bit about us. We are established by code. This is consistent around the state. As I was preparing this, I realized we were established in 1974. That means we're 50 years old. And I said, we should celebrate. I know, we have to have a celebration. So we are 7 volunteer members appointed by our Board of Commissioners. And this slide is actually wrong. We have 7 associate members and many volunteers who work with us throughout the year. The associate members are chosen by us as our committee, and it's really anyone who's interested in helping out. We just make them an associate member, but it's really, really important to open these committees to folks that are interested, just to see if they find that they like what we do and get them interested. And this also provides sort of a pipeline for folks to become appointed members, and that's really important. Because a lot of times, many boards and commissions end up having people that are serving for a long time, and you really want to make sure that you're building up sort of the folks that will transition into these volunteer positions. But let me tell you a little bit about Abington. We are what's considered a first-class township, and we are located in southeastern Montgomery County. And as you can see from this map, we're very densely populated. 58,000 at the last count that I'm aware of. So we have a very densely populated area, a very urban core right outside Philadelphia. And for us, we have as I said, we're a first-class township, and I can get into all kinds of details about those differences, but that means we have a very large board of commissioners, so 15 members, 15-member board of commissioners. So that's who we advise as an advisory group. And again, we've been pretty effective, I think, over the years. One of the things that we do, because of our position of where we are, we have 3 sort of local watersheds that feed into Abington. And all of these watershed areas, the Wissahickon Creek, the Pennypack, and my personal favorite, the Tocantins-Frankfurt Watershed Partnership, I was on that board for many years, all have very active watershed organizations that we are able to partner with and we support for all their programming as well. So there's a lot of activity in the township. But again, we are an urbanized township, so our streams and creeks are considered impaired from primarily stormwater runoff. Most of Abington, I think on my next, oops, sorry, went too fast. Most of our housing, as you saw from the previous slides, was actually built before 1960, well before there was any regulatory oversight on stormwater. So many of our homes were actually built right up to creeks. So as you might imagine, over the years, as things continue to develop, we have a lot of flooding issues. And from that, both in the Tocantins and the Wissahickon, we've had property damage and loss of life because of flooding. So there's that concern, and then also, again, being very urbanized, most of our streams are impaired. So we spend a lot of our time educating our residents about clean water and clean water activities. Here's the land use. You can see that it's very residential. That's that yellow that you're seeing there. But we do have quite a bit of institutional, which is that sort of light blue. One of Penn State's campuses, Abington campus, is in our township, and we have a pretty extensive park system and major corridors, of course, and lots of commercial. And you can also see here that we do have an extensive park system. We have skate park, 2 swimming pools, a nature center. That nature center has a museum and a bird observatory. So there's a lot of things going on in our township. So the EDC has been really active over the years, and we do a lot of work with our staff and other township committees. Specifically, we work very closely with the Shade Tree Commission. Anybody here from a Shade Tree Commission? Okay, and we used to be a joint. Historically, we were a joint commission, but we separated because there's so much just on the tree side in our community. But we do a lot of work with them. We work with Birdtown, Pennsylvania, another organization that sort of crosses on all the different activities that we do. We collaborate, again, with environmental organizations. As I mentioned, all these different watershed groups, so we're really fortunate to be able to work with them. And then we also work with our neighboring EACs. So pretty much everyone around us, Cheltenham, Jamestown, Upper Dublin, they all have EACs, and we have regional meetings and gatherings. So there's a lot of peer learning, and we're borrowing ideas from each other. So we're pretty active that way. So a couple of things I wanted to let you know about what we do right now. We participate in several different committees, and we're right now part of the Southeastern PA Single-Use Plastic Coalition. We're all advocating for ban single-use plastic. We have an ordinance in front of our commissioners right now that they're considering. We're also part of the PA Composting Coalition. Again, working with those other communities and with other EACs, we're able to share best practices. And then I think in Pennsylvania, if one municipality passes an ordinance, it's a lot easier for the next one to do that. So these coalitions are really powerful. Birdtown, PA, and then we also are all very involved in the townships when they update their plans. So we sat on the comprehensive planning update that was just a year or 2 ago. We just updated our open space plan in 2023. The EAC members are represented in all these committees. Again, so we have a voice as part of that process. Of course, we're all residents as well, but it's one of the things that I think that's really great and makes our EAC very effective. And that is it for me. But I just wanted to mention again that environmental advisory councils, they differ, and they can be in an urbanized area like mine, but they can also be in more rural communities. But your effectiveness is really tied to being able to show that you have a value to your community and to your township, and I think we've been able to do that pretty well. Hopefully we'll talk a little bit more about that. So I'm going to hand it off to my esteemed colleague here from Canton Township.
I'm with the Canton Township Parks and Recreation. I happen to be chair of the board. I was the one that didn't step back. No, I'm just kidding. I'm in the third year of a 5-year term. We have seven members on our board. I do have some slides. Okay. My slides are just representative of some of the things we've been working on and what we do throughout the year. Callan is a first-class township. It is about 8.8 miles in area, 0.11% of that being water. We have the Valley Creek and the Beaver Creek that run through our township. We do have issues with flooding as a result. Some of the projects we've been working on are to help remediate that problem. Everybody's been talking about the riparian buffer, and we've been working on that in 2 of our 4 parks. I just lost my train of thought. Oh, one of them is also a dog park, which made for interesting events during our planting. We were using live stake trees, and apparently the dogs thought they looked like sticks. So some of them carried them around and dropped them here and there. So some of our trees were not exactly where they were supposed to be to begin with as a result. I figured they're the ones that are going to use the trees, so makes sense. Callan is between Downingtown and Coastal City, and Route 30 bypass, and the Lincoln Highway run, from east to west borders through the township. Most of our business is along the Lincoln Highway, and then the residents, or most of them, the developments are on farms that have been developed. I'm just going to continue through my slides because I don't really want to say too much more right now, but here we go. Oh, one thing I will say is we have a very good pool of volunteers. We have an email chain, and we put out the word and they come out to help out. And we see them again and again. Okay, I'm going to go.
Good afternoon. My name is Crystal Gilchrist. I am currently employed with Representative Joe Webster in the Perkiomen Valley up near Collegeville. I have been in the professional planning business since about 1986, all in southeastern Pennsylvania. For part of my career, so I dealt with an awful lot of volunteer planning commissions, so I'm most familiar with those types of volunteers. I have been a traffic engineer for part of my career, so I definitely have experience with hostile planning commissions. So if you want to talk about those types of issues, I'm your girl. I live in Lower Frederick Township, which is, oh no, it's other.
Doesn't work on TVs.
Okay, which is up here. Oops, back. That is Lower Frederick Township. We are fairly rural. We have a traffic circle. We have, I think, 2 traffic lights. We have an awful lot of open space. We sit along the Perkiomen Creek with a number of, and the Swamp Creek converges with the Perkiomen in our township. We do have an EAC and we do have an open space committee. Within the last 5 years, my community has enacted an open space fee, which was contentious to begin with, but it eventually got passed, and now they have some cash. They can start looking at how to acquire properties and improve different things. In my experience with volunteers, I've also worked with the Perkiomen Watershed Conservancy. I worked with them for about 8 years, so we had an awful lot of different types of volunteer activities through them, and those were happy volunteers, not hostile ones that I had faced previously. There are numerous opportunities to volunteer in your communities through the nonprofits. They always need help, so if you're looking for a place where you can add value, those guys are certainly always open for help. I have been personally a member of our local planning commission for about 20 years, and I'm currently our representative to the Central Perkiomen Valley Regional Planning Commission. And if you have questions about regional planning, I'll be happy to talk to you about those too, because it can be a really big, a positive thing for your community if you can join with your neighbors in planning. I don't have anything more particular to say about my experience, so I guess we can get right into the questions.
All right, thank you so much. Our first question is, what qualifications does a person need to serve on one of these boards, committees, or councils? So what kind of qualifications do you need?
Passion and interest and caring.
I'm going to add to that and say you also need an open mind, because there's a good likelihood you've joined this committee or this effort because of a passion that you have, which is fantastic, but you may not have all the information that you need about that particular issue. So at least in a planning commission situation, I know a lot of people get on their local planning commission because they want to stop development, make it all go away, make those horrible developers just stop coming here. And then the solicitor sits you down and says, oh no, that's illegal, you can't do that. You got to learn to work with those folks. And for a lot of folks, that's an initial disappointment because they felt that they had a lot more power than them. So go into your, especially your municipal committees, you have to understand your limitations, you have to understand the role, and then have an open mind so that you can learn as much as possible about those issues so you can make wise decisions.
Thank you for that, Crystal. And I'm wondering how much time you need to commit to when serving on these.
So, I can tackle that for a second. Oh, here. I'm not sure it's this order. It varies, I can tell you. You have to be willing to know that you're going to have to, be outside your regular work hours, and if you're, if you have a full-time job, there's time, definitely. We meet once a month. That's pretty typical for EACs and probably all the other types of boards. We often have activities that we volunteer for during the weekends, and so. But it's not. It's kind of relative, and I think all places are different. But I would say that there's, at the minimum, you're looking at least maybe a day or two of time every month when you're on a board like this. That's my experience, but others may have more or less.
I sometimes think in terms of time that I integrate a lot of the concerns. I serve on several other nonprofit boards, including Friendship Vicar Goods Conservation Trust. So it totally varies, and I think in terms of just connecting with neighbors, that takes a lot of time. But I love connecting with people, so it doesn't feel like work.
That's a wonderful answer. It doesn't feel like work because you love what you do. Wonderful. And I think, Crystal, you have something else to add too.
Oh, I almost forgot what I was going to say. In terms of volunteering for nonprofit, like conservation organizations, that's something that you have more flexibility in terms of what you choose to participate in and not. All the conservation groups are always doing tree planting or riparian buffer work or maintenance on rain gardens, all types of things that require maybe one Saturday morning and then nothing else. So you can sign up for those types of volunteer activities where you're doing something really important, but it doesn't require you month after month after month to set aside that amount of time if your lifestyle just doesn't allow for that. So there are ways to get involved that don't require years of commitment.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Helen.
I'm just going to reiterate what she said, or what everybody's been saying. There is one meeting a month, which lasts about an hour, and then we have events, mostly through the warm weather season. We have a summer series that we do. Being with Parks and Recreation, we have a lot of fun, along with the work projects that we do. And as I said before, we have a lot of volunteers, regulars that come out again and again. We don't have to be at every event because we do rely on each other that way. So as far as time commitment, it's manageable.
Thank you. Our next question is something we've alluded a bit to, and I'm wondering if there are any other bits that you'd like to add on about what is expected of a person serving on the board. I know you'll mention once a month meetings, but what are those other expectations? You want to go ahead, Pete?
I'll talk about planning commissions for a minute. Okay. A planning commission is a volunteer position, but is also a very official position in Pennsylvania municipalities because planning commissions start the clock for all land developments and their approval process, through the municipality's planning code. Planning commissions require you to not just show up and be there, but they require you to really put on your thinking cap in a lot of ways because you're going to be faced with situations that you may not think are the best for your community, but that are legally going to become parts of your community. And you have to be able to work with an applicant who's trying to make as much money as they can while providing whatever it is they're going to develop. And you're trying to preserve your community character and make sure that it fits in with everything else, transportation, environment, all that stuff. So you're going to be at odds at times with the person that you're dealing with. I think for the EAC and the open space committees and those types of situations, it's kind of like the Musketeers. It's all for one, one for all. You're all kind of pushing in the same general direction. On a planning commission, you have to be ready to understand that push and shove and give and take that happens with a legal process that you're a part of. And sometimes those meetings are way more than an hour. And you have to be ready to sweat them out. Stick around.
So Susan or Edie, do you have any more comments about the Three Musketeers side of the...
I think we're talking about expectations. It depends upon your role. So if you're the chair of the Open Space Review Board, well, you're going to pretty much put in a little bit more time than a citizen representative. So as you think about getting involved with your local commissions. Look at the role that you're undertaking. And in my case, it's just been a learning curve from day one. So I put some time, but I don't know never know whether that's really what is expected. What's expected is that our board will give strong and good advice to the Board of Supervisors, because we don't have any authority to spend money. We only advise the Board of Supervisors, who ultimately will make the decisions.
Do you have anything to add, Helen or Susan? Our next question is pretty straightforward. Can you describe a typical board, committee, or council meeting? No. Go ahead.
They're all a little different, I would say. A little hard.
Hello? Oh, there it is. Yeah, we meet every month, and our meetings actually range from, could be 1.5 to 2.5, sometimes 3 hours. It depends. There's a lot of stuff going on. So it's not, nothing is really typical. We have an agenda that we have to follow by code, and we have to advertise. Just like Crystal said, there are actually, we operate under municipal code, so all the things that we do are related to what what we've been established to do as an advisory group. So, yeah, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry about that. That's the question again.
Oh, okay, it was about describing a typical meeting.
Oh, typical meeting, yes. So ours are actually, we always met in person, but after the pandemic, we actually started meeting virtual, and we've actually continued to meet virtually, which we find actually much better. We have a pretty open format, and allowing people who are the public to come and join our discussions. And so we found that to be very a more equitable way for folks to participate. So that's kind of our meeting. And then we have, again, a long agenda, and it really does depend on the season. We're coming into, a lot of things are happening, and there's lots of, we were asked to participate in certain things. So yeah, it varies. But our meetings are pretty lively, and if there's a hot topic, there's a land development, for example, that we're asked to look at, and it can be a pretty long meeting, but you never know. That's what's great about it.
It sounds interesting, then. You never know what's going to happen. What do you think, Helen?
Our meetings.
Our meetings are anything but typical, usually. This last meeting we were stuffing a couple of thousand of Easter eggs for our Easter egg hunt coming up. Nothing to do with the flooding or anything. But we all have the opportunity to propose different projects. One of the things about our board, we all come from different interests. We have an artist, she's organizing an art show. Another woman is our resident plant expert, and she, in our dog park, put in urine-resistant plantings as part of a study, and the dogs gave those plants quite the test. Some of them did better than others. So that, like I said, it can be different every time. Everybody's given a chance to talk up what they're focusing on at the moment.
I think planning commission meetings can really run the gamut. We deal with everything from what the open space and EAC and the park board are proposing. We get to weigh in on that, to land developments that come in. The land development conversations are always much more contentious. Just because everybody wants to preserve every last parcel that we have, and that's just not possible. So we kind of struggle to get as much green space as possible out of every land development. And it's a difficult conversation because you do have legal constraints on what you can deny and what you can require. It's mostly about your powers of persuasion with the applicant and how well what kind of relationship you can build with them, that they're willing to listen to what you even have to say and maybe compromise a little along the way. If you start off at odds with an applicant, you're not going to get much out of them. And I think a lot of communities kind of start out that way, that if it's a developer, we're absolutely against it no matter what you have to say. That's not a good place to start for compromise. So the planning commissions are a little bit different because our role is more structured in a municipality. The EACs and those other committees, you can make them kind of what you want or what your community needs. The planning commission is much more structured, so you have to be prepared for that.
And Crystal, this might be a good one for you to kick off next on that note. What do you think are the cornerstones for good relationships among board and committee members in driving these outcomes? Do you want to start for us?
Oh, sure. Restraint is a quality to have. Because there will be times when you honestly want to put your hands around somebody's throat, and you can't do that at a public meeting. It's frowned upon. People come to these conversations from all types of positions, so you won't agree with everything everybody says at a board meeting. But the cornerstone, I think, is being willing to listen with an open mind so you actually hear what's being said. You also need to read between the lines because what's said is not always the complete picture, so you have to be able to figure out both. And you need to be willing to understand what compromise means going forward, because you're not all going to get everything that you want. I think those are probably the biggest ones. From a planning commission point of view, I think the other committees certainly have other requirements and cornerstones that they would talk about.
Do you have comments here, Helen?
I feel a little bit like I'm just at play most of the time I'm at meetings and doing activities. One of our cornerstones is actually a position with the township. We have a township member and our leader of the Parks and Recreation Board. She's great because she can be our liaison to the Board of Commissioners, the township manager. She's our point of contact with our volunteers. And that's very important because without her, we don't know the protocols necessarily. We're not staff of the township per se. So she's kind of greases the rails for us most of the time. So she's great.
Wonderful. Edie, you have something to add to?
From our perspective in North Coventry, the 7 members that that work together for open space, I just wake up every morning and I'm grateful for them because each of us respects each other. And I think that respect for other members, and I think also respect for the public as they come in, is really key to having a successful meeting.
I would just echo pretty much what I just heard from everybody else. I wrote down respectful and listen, and those are 2 qualities personally for me have been really effective.
Wonderful, thank you. Our next question is, which board, committee, or council successes are you most proud of? Go ahead, Susan, you've got it.
Here's a few. I think we were as I think the biggest accomplishments I've been there is that we are now part of the sort of the review process for the township, which has been really a way for us to at least be able to provide our opinion and its value. So that to me was like a huge accomplishment for us. We've run some great successful programs. We have the Rain Barrel programs, but I think that particular one, which is where we are, valued, is really, for me personally, was a big thing. So.
When I first started, I suggested that we needed some more expertise on our board. And the Board of Supervisors really wanted us to keep really close to the rules. Those of you who know me know I like to bend things. We have Chris, who resigned, was named by another board member to be chair emeritus. So we have a chair emeritus. That's not in the ordinance, but he is critical to our success. We have somebody who comes almost to every meeting, who participates as a member of the board because he contributes so much. And we're just incredibly lucky that we have the group that we have. As I said, I respect every one of them, and we would not have been able to secure the land this year without all of their help.
Yeah, 24% you said earlier, that's incredible. That's a huge success. Crystal or Helen, do you have anything else to add about successes? Helen, go ahead.
One of the future parks that we have in our township is a property that the township purchased probably a decade or more ago. It's a historic farm, and as I said, it's earmarked to be a park. The Historical Commission in our township is very excited. They have all sorts of events in mind, and we've teamed up with them. The Parks and Recreation has teamed up with the Historical Commission, and we had an event this past summer. We actually got on the schedule of the Town Talks and Village Walks. The theme this year was agriculture, and this farm is not lived in. There's nobody dwelling there, but there's a farmer that rents the property and he grows corn. So we tweaked the rules a little bit, and we put on a pretty good living history event that went over well. We actually ended up having to turn people away, but we had costumed actors, and it was a pretty good thing. So that's one thing. Working together with another commission on that project was something I think we all can be pretty proud of.
Wow, that's incredible. And our last question today, if each of you could take a moment to share with how you each got recruited on the board for your council that you are now on. You want to start, Helen? Thank you.
I showed up to pick up trash, basically. No, I was fairly new to the township and wanted to get to meet my neighbors, and they had a cleanup day. I went, and then I went back and again, and finally our leader, I guess, noticed I was coming around and asked me if I ever thought about being on the Parks and Recreation, and I hadn't. But she got me thinking about it, and I went ahead and I applied. The process wasn't terribly in-depth. It was an online application where you submitted a resume, a very brief resume. You had to provide a couple of references, pass a background check, and explain, what you might bring to the board. And I got through the whole process, and as I said, I'm in third year of a 5-year term, and was appointed as the chair, which I just basically make sure we stick to the agenda at our meetings and finish quickly because they're always impatient to get going. So
That's a very important job. Crystal, why don't you share next?
I was just gonna say, I just asked, moved to a new community, and I contacted the township and said, hey, I have a planning commission, do you need anybody on it? Yeah, we have an opening coming up. Good, I'm gonna put my name in. And I say that because there are very few municipal committees, commissions, groups doing work at the municipal level that are turning members away. They are all looking for help. So if you have an interest, just ask. Call up your township manager and say, hey, I have an interest in open space, or I have an interest in helping out the environment. How can I participate? And they will put you in touch with the people who are on these committees who are looking for volunteers. Don't feel like, oh, I can't do anything, or I'm not good enough, or whatever. There's a space for everybody, even if it's just stuffing Easter eggs once a year. Our township building lobby is full of boxes marked Easter eggs right now, too. So yeah, don't hesitate. Just ask.
Thank you. What about you, Susan?
Yeah, I thought about this question because, trying to think back, I remember moving to the township when I was expecting at the time, and I just said, I really want to be able to participate, but I wasn't quite ready. And so what I did was, when I felt I would have some time and interest, my professional background is as an environmental planner, so I said, I think I can maybe help here. And at that point, I started to go to meetings, and I went to events, and I volunteered, and met the folks that were the current committee, the members of the AAC were just the nicest people, and they were very welcoming, and I just, I just became an associate, and then I guess a year later when we were on staggered terms, so every year at least 3 of our members would be coming up for renewals. Anyway, so I said, sure, I'd like to do this, and I'm still on the board. It was organic like that, but I also really wanted to do something to volunteer for my community, and that's kind of what motivated me. And it was also the group was so welcoming. So.
I retired from the National Park Service, and almost 2 days after I retired, I got a phone call from one of the volunteers at the park who was on the Open Space Review Board and said, Edie, you've got to come and help us at Open Space. What was interesting, though, is that perhaps not in every township, but in our township, there was competition. I had to go for an interview with the whole board. I had to be vetted by the whole board, and luckily, my biggest competitor, after having an hour conversation with them, said, oh, Edie, you better take that job.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your journeys here with us today. And I'm going to circle back real quick to the audience and just prompt you to think about your own place in this movement as well. Think about how your own passions and skills contribute to bettering these environmental issues in your own communities. So let's give it up a round of applause for our panelists today.